이거는 지금 나가고 있어요. 나가고 있는지 확인해 주세요. 일단은 저기서 찍고.
잠시만요.
여기 꽂을 데가 한 군데도 없구나. 가로로 나가나요? 아니 지금 나가나요? 아니 로그인 하지 말고 실시간을 봐주세요. 전 찍고 있는데 다시 다 나가세요. 유튜브 다 끄고 다른 분들 그러니까 로그아웃을 할 필요는 없지만 나가세요. 나오나요? 저 다 나가세요. 다 유튜브 다 끄세요. 아닌데 나는 나가고 있는데 채널 한번 검색해 주세요. 아 그쵸? 나오고 있어요.
뭘 봐야 돼요?
근데 이거 어떡하지? 어떻게 하지? 네 됩니다. 근데 이거를 제가 들고 있을 줄
그걸 뭘 봐야 돼요?
모르겠어요. 주람쌤 이쪽 와서 좀 도와주세요. 여기 앉아주세요. 아마 제가 힘들면은 팔을 제가 이거를
흔들리지 않게 저걸 좀 편하게 잡게 해줄게요.
감사합니다.
잠시만요. 자,
말씀드릴게요. 지금 실시간 되고 있다고.
네네.
자 이렇게 하고 이렇게 하고 됐죠? 잡고 잠시만요.
이거 꽂는 게 뭐가 다른가요?
신발.
그러면은
잠시만요. 캔을 잠깐만 그 들고 있어요. 제가 맞출게요.
배터리가 문제예요. 김승배 교수님 혹시 여기는 그거 없나요?
외장 배터리.
아니 외장 배터리가 아니라 그 선 이렇게 연결해 주는 거 없나요? 길게? 선 이거 꽂아서
익스텐션 멀티탭
네.
제가 한번 물어볼게요.
네네. 네, 이걸
자,
근데 이걸 들고 있어야 돼요?
여기 손잡이 있으면 이게 덜 흔들려서 흔들리지
이거
않게.
수평 맞춰주니까
거기서 거긴데.
뭐 버튼 누르면 수평 해주지 않아요?
뒤에 두 번 딱딱딱 뒤에 두 번 하면 가운데 지금 가운데 돼.
뭐 해주는 거예요 얘가?
얘가 이제 흔들림을 방지해주는.
네 잘 보여요. 야은미 선생님 소리는 잘 들리나요? 저기 화면 들어주세요.
마이크 테스트 1, 2, 3 마이크 테스트 소리 들리나요? 하나 둘셋넷 마이크 테스트 1, 2, 3 마이크 테스트
들려요,
1, 2, 3
들려요.
1, 2, 3 하나 둘셋 마이크 테스트
잠시만 이거 들어주시겠어요? 프로그램에 빠차마마를 올려놔야겠어요. 실시간.
알고는 없으니까.
나 아직 시작 안 했으니까. 근데 컴퓨터 유지하는 게 있나요?
양은미 교수님?
삼각대가 혹시 여분이 아니 들고 있을 수밖에 없어.
이러고 있으면 될 것 같은데요?
자 이렇게 할 수밖에 없는데.
Siento mucho el retraso, pero ya vamos iniciando las sesiones y el evento de hoy. Muy buenos días a todos y ¿cómo han amanecido hoy? Muy bien, muy bien. Bueno, ya es el tercer día de esta conferencia, la última jornada de este evento. Es una, bueno, ya el tiempo ha pasado muy rápido, ¿verdad? Bueno, entonces hoy, la jornada de hoy empieza por las charlas magistrales. En primer lugar, le invito al señor Lee Hyun-hoon, profesor del Departamento de Estudios Económicos y Comercios Internacionales de la Universidad Nacional de Gangwon, a dirigirnos su charla.
Hola, good morning to you. Good morning. Thanks very much for having me here in this very important and timely conference on ecological civilization. So for the past 2 days, we have been discussing various ways to move toward ecological civilization. So today, in 30 minutes time, I'd like to try to wrap up what we have discussed from my view, of course. The title of today is, as you can see on the screen, the 4 new normals and the 4th way. So in my talk, I'm going to talk about what kinds of major transformations that we humans are undertaking for the first time of human history. And then we'll try to think about what we can do about how best we can move toward the ecological civilization. So as far as I understand, ecological civilization is a world in which we human societies are improving the overall well-being of not only humans, but also the ecosystem of Mother Earth. So let me just, briefly introduce myself. Actually, I'm a professor of economics at Foundation University. I'm the only one from a different university from Korea. And I'm currently serving as the president of International Urban Trade Center, whose main mission is to actually invite government officials from developing countries all over the world for capacity building workshops, particularly on the issues of sustainable development for cities and the regions of not only Korea but for different countries and communities all over the world. So actually my talk is very much drawing upon my recent book on this. Actually, the main title is The Destined Future, or The Predestined Future. But the subtitle is the talk that I'm going to actually give you today. As you can see, the 4 new numbers. So what are the 4 new numbers? First of all, actually here I'm actually using the 4 new numbers as kind of a new way of human living, or with the major mega-sized transformations of human beings. So which are actually digital transformation and also population aging and social polarization, and lastly the loss of ecological diversity and climate crisis. So let me just briefly explain one at a time. For the first 15 minutes or so, and the second half of my presentation, I talk about the 4th way, which I think is a new way that we have to take up to move toward make for ecological society in which we could actually improve the well-being of not only humans but also the earth. So, well, as far as I understand, we humans, the Homo sapiens, has undergone 3 ultra-mega revolutions. The very first one is nothing but the agricultural revolution. So So agricultural revolution took place about 10,000 years ago. Actually, we have a history of 300,000 years ago. So for the first 290,000 years or so, we were simply hunters and gatherers. And then, all of a sudden, we studied agriculture. Why? Because we became smarter? No, not because of that, but because the climate system changed. Actually, the ice age ended, and the current geological epoch started, which is nothing but Holocene epoch. The Holocene epoch is rather very much mild and suitable for agriculture. So we were able to cultivate crops, and then that was the beginning of the human civilization. So human civilization started with agricultural revolution, and the human society became agricultural society. And then 10,000 years or so passed after the first ultra mega revolution. So the second ultra mega revolution was nothing but the industrial revolution, which took place about 250 years ago. First in England and in the rest of Europe, and then all over the world. So the second ultra mega revolution, as I said, is industrial revolution. Why is it the second industrial revolution? Why is the industrial revolution is the second ultra mega revolution? Because that changed the human society from agricultural society to industrial society. Here in the industry means manufacturing sector. Okay? So industrial revolution is nothing but just the invention of various kinds of machines. So with machines, we humans became more efficient in the production of various goods and services. So previously, of course, human labor was only the means of production. But now, with the industrial revolution, we humans became more productive in producing various goods and services. And the industrial revolution, many people think that has had 4 different kinds of industrial revolutions: the first, second, third, and the fourth. But the third and fourth industrial revolutions are not quite industrial revolutions, but actually the digital revolutions. Why? Because, as you can see now, actually the third industrial revolution is about actually invention of computers and also the invention of some communication technologies. So we call it the ICT revolution, information communication technology revolution, right? So we human, for the first time in our history, became more efficient because of the technology of digital. Previously, we used this analog technology. Now, with the digital technology, now we are able to now compute more rapidly. We are now able to communicate more rapidly and efficiently. Okay. What is then the fourth industrial revolution? The fourth, number 4, is actually enhanced form of the third industrial revolution. The first characteristic of the fourth industrial revolution is more enhanced form of computers and also communication technology. So we now have the smartphones in our hand. The smartphones are perhaps 1 million times more powerful than the ultra mega size IBM supercomputer, which first appeared in the 1970s. Right? Everybody has one supercomputer in his or her hand. Okay? That is actually very much interconnected with every individual on the planet. So we have become very, very powerful in that regard. And now, actually, we are now actually aided by new machines, which are what we call artificial intelligence programs. So that's another kind of new invention in the current stage of digital revolution. So once again, I just like to call the third and fourth industrial revolution as digital revolution because it's not about the analog machine related inventions, but it is rather very much digital related innovation. So it is digital revolution, and because of that, as you can see now, we are now entering digital society moving from the industrial society. So once again, so previously our human society was very much hunter-gatherer society for the for more than like 290,000 years or so, and then we just studied agricultural society and civilization, of course, because of the agricultural revolution, which started about 10,000 years ago, and then we moved toward the industrial society, and last, now we are entering the digital society. What does that mean? Actually, first of all, because of the second and the third ultra mega revolutions, we were able to actually increase the size of human production, which is what we call in economics GDP. Global GDP and the population as well have been skyrocketing, as you can see. As you can see in this screen, the population side has been skyrocketing in the past 200 years or so, and also world GDP increased very exponentially, as you can see, very much the same as the population. Also, GDP per capita personal income has also increased very much the same exponentially in the past 200 years or so. So perhaps it will continue to increase very much exponentially because of the very rapid increase in the digital technology. So you have heard of perhaps Moore's law, which actually indicates that the efficiency of the computer technology doubles every 2 years. Because of that, not only the digital technology, but also many other, related technologies like material science or nanotechnologies, biotechnologies have been also, increasing very much, improving very much exponentially at the moment. So now, actually, we humans, Homo sapiens, are now evolving to become totally new species, which you may call Robo sapiens, because we are not very much actually utilizing robots, and also Phono sapiens, because we are very much utilizing the smartphones, and also some people like Yuval Harari, actually named our new species Homo Deus. Deus here means actually God, so we are becoming very much the God. And also, I would like to say that actually overall, we are now becoming Homo digitalis, or the digital human. So the second, the transformation is actually population aging. So because of the rapid, improvement in the technologies, particularly since the second ultra mega revolution and the current digital revolution, the life expectancy, as you can see, has been increasing very much exponentially since the late 1800s. So not only in the actually advanced countries, but also in most of the countries in the whole world, as you can see. On the other hand, the fertility rates have been decreasing very much. So the life expectancy has been increasing. On the other hand, we give birth less number. So which means actually in the total population, there are more and more aged people. So total share, the share of the aged people has been increasing very rapidly, as you can see in the whole world. Not only particularly in the advanced countries, but also in most of the countries, including Korea, China, and perhaps in Latin American countries. Okay? So because of that, now actually the aged population are becoming kind of the majority in the human population. So what does that mean? Actually, there are many important actually characteristics of the aging society. Number one is that actually now there is a kind of polarization of wealth between the aged population and the young population. Because in old times we didn't live too long, so the parents' wealth are all actually given to their offspring before they turn to like 50s or 60s of age, but we live up to like 80s or 90s, even longer. perhaps our generation, many of you will live to like over 100 years of age. So we have to keep our belongings, and we have a different separate actually households. So actually there's kind of a polarization of the elderly generation and the young generation. And also I think I'd like to actually focus on the third characteristic, which is actually the possibility of the secular recession. I'm an economist. Now human labor is an important production factor, but there are other, of course, important factors like labor, not only labor but also land, capital, and such. But human labor is becoming kind of very much aged. What does that mean? That means actually production efficiency may become weaker. You may say that, but I don't really worry too much about that possibility. Why? Because of the very rapid development in the digital technologies, we are now rapidly utilizing, artificial intelligence and robots. So artificial intelligence robots are actually not only just supplementing, but also replacing human labor. Not only just physical labor, but also mental labor. So actually you have heard of many human labor just competing with machines. So with the Industrial Revolution, many people worried that actually the human will lose their jobs. But we created new jobs with the Industrial Revolution, mostly in the service sector. But now with the digital revolution, there's a very great possibility that we humans will lose our job opportunities. Why? Because now the artificial intelligence robots are replacing our human physical labor and mental labor, not only in the manufacturing sector but also in the service sector. All right? So perhaps many of you are professors, and professors' jobs could be also replaced by artificial intelligence. Perhaps artificial intelligence may be perhaps better in teaching and also in doing research. Actually, artificial intelligence can do most of the human mental work these days. Anyway, so I don't worry too much about actually the supply side of the population aging consequence, but the problem is the demand side. The artificial intelligence robots do not eat, actually do not consume at all, do not need any housing, do not travel at all. We just simply keep producing. For what? For human use. But we humans become older and older. So we actually eat less, actually. As we become older, we consume less, we travel less, and we do not want to actually spend much for our future generations' education. So there will be a lack of demand for goods and services. So that which means actually there's a possibility that actually the economic growth will be slowing down in the very long term. So the third major transformation that the humans are undertaking is actually the social polarization. Why is that? Because as you can see here in this screen, if you want to look at the overall income just distribution among people in the whole world, as you can see, the top 10% income earners owns over 50% of global GDP as of 2021. On the other hand, the bottom 50 actually owns only less than 10% of global GDP. If you were to look at the wealth distribution, it is even worse. As you can see now, top 10% richest people actually owns more than 75% of global wealth. On the other hand, the bottom 50% of global population, has only 2% of global wealth. So we have a great polarization of income, particularly in wealth. So the situation becomes even worse. As you can see in this screen on the left-hand side, as you see, the top 10% income shares in some selected countries such as US, France, Germany, China, and the UK. As you can see, since the 1990s, the income shares of top 10% owners have been increasing. On the other hand, the bottom 50% income shares in these countries have been increasing very much. So we are now witnessing the increasing social polarization of income. Not only income, but also in the wealth, as you can see. Since the 1990s, as you see now, the top 1% in this case, the wealth shares has been increasing in each and every one of the selected countries in here, including China, Russia, and such as well. So why is that? That's because of the rapid development of technologies, of course. We are, as I said, undertaking the digital revolution, which is the third ultra mega revolution of humankind. And the second reason is because of the globalization, as we all know. And the third is, of course, the spread of free market economic system. Of course, I'm an economist. I teach, globalization and, free market economic system. But I just want to emphasize that it has some merits, but it also to have some deficiencies that we really need to think hard about. And the fourth point is the population aging. Population aging is also now imposing some kind of social polarization problem ahead. And lastly, climate crisis and the loss of biological diversity, which I think you are all very much aware of. So I'm not going to spend much time on that, but I'd like to just simply show some of the screens that we really want to pay attention to. First of all, since the industrialization, which is the second ultra mega revolution of humankind, as you see, the Earth's surface temperature, on average, of course, increased just 1.1 degrees Celsius since the 1900. So we are really worried that if we do not change the course of our way of life, then perhaps it will increase to become like 1.5 degrees Celsius by the year of 2030 or 40, and it will reach like 2.0 degrees Celsius by the year of 2050. So what are the consequences? There are various consequences that we are all aware of. I think the most important, consequence, as far as I'm concerned, is the food prices. As I said, the first ultra mega revolution started because of the global warming at the time. The ice age ended, and the Holocene started, which was milder and warmer, more suitable for agriculture. But now the earth is becoming too warm, no longer suitable for agriculture. So I'm very much worried that we'll have increasing food prices. As a matter of fact, actually, that is really happening here and there. So of course there are some other consequences of the bad side effects of global warming, but I think food prices are number one kind of consequence that we really need to pay attention to. Well, why is that happening? That is, of course, because of the global, warming gases have been emitted, particularly since the year of Industrial Revolution. Particularly since 1900, as you can see now, the emission of carbon dioxide, which is actually accounted for about 80% of greenhouse gases, which cause, of course, global warming. As you see now, it has been increasing very dramatically in the past 100 years or so. So it will continue to increase if we do not change the course of the way of life. Why is that? That's because we are burning fossil fuels. We started burning fossil fuels with the Industrial Revolution, which started 250 years ago. As I just said, we use fossil fuels to generate power, and also to actually use our transportation, and also to actually run machines in various factories. Who are responsible for the emission of carbon dioxide? Number one is, as a matter of fact, China. Number two is the US, and India, Russia, Japan. Actually, Korea ranks number 8. So Korea is responsible for the emission of carbon dioxide quite a lot, as a matter of fact. So, what about then some kind of time trend? As you can see now, the very top one is actually, this shows actually the carbon dioxide emissions per person, okay, not the total one. As you see, actually, per capita carbon dioxide emission is the greatest in the country of the US. But as you can see now, it has been sort of decreasing gradually. Also, in the European Union countries, it has been decreasing. In Japan, it has been decreasing. What is really worrisome is that actually this has been very much increasing in the countries like China and in Korea, where actually the industrialization very rapidly actually occurring still. So perhaps of course we are entering digital society. Still, there are many countries which are now undergoing industrial revolution. So that actually has resulted in the increasing use of fossil fuels and emitting more carbon dioxide and such global warming gases. So we humans have attempted to actually stop or alleviate the current process of global warming. We all know about this, so let's just skip this and this. But as you can see now, it all depends upon what choice we make today. Perhaps we could speed up the global warming process even more rapidly, or we could slow down. We could somehow change the course of the way of our life. So then who is responsible? As I said, at the moment, perhaps in terms of the total amount of global warming greenhouse gases, of course China is number one, but actually carbon dioxide emission, for example, once it is emitted, actually it goes up and then it stays there for over 100 years of time. So even if some advanced countries have been decreasing the carbon dioxide emissions at the moment, actually they are mostly responsible because they are the ones who actually emitted most of the carbon dioxide for the past 100 years or so, right? So there's a kind of conflict between developed and developing countries, right? So it is not easy actually to come up with any kind of globally agreed kind of solutions to combat global climate crisis. So I just have given you some perspectives on what we humans are now undergoing in the name of 4 new normals. So I'd like to now I'd like to draw your attention to a kind of a new way that I'd like to propose now with the current 4 new normals. So what are they? The 4 new normals are not really kind of blessings for the humankind. Actually I'm an economist. Actually in the investment theory, actually there are 2 different kinds of possible risks. The first is kind of a white swan before, a risk that can be predicted in advance. Okay? So that's kind of a risk that you can prevent in advance because we can predict. But there's another kind of risk that cannot be predicted in advance, but has a very tremendous consequences once it occurs. That we call black swan. So perhaps population aging could be considered as a white swan, okay? A risk that can be predicted in advance. Because we know how rapidly our life expectancy will increase, how rapidly the fertility rate will decrease for the whole world, also for each individual countries as well. So, but the social polarization is very much like a black swan. So a systematic overthrow or an economic crisis could happen because of the social polarization. That happened in the past history of humankind, of course. There was kind of labor protest in the past, and also in the very early stage of industrialization, many workers and people like some socialists actually try to just overthrow the entire society. And really, actually, a new socialist states like the Soviet Union and other socialist countries appeared as a result. And also, global warming is a kind of a new kind of risk. Actually, green swan is a new name for such kind of risk, named by BIS, Bank for International Settlements, in 2020 report. So it is also kind of risk that is very much sure to occur, but we don't know when. And once it occurs, then that will actually bring about very tremendous kind of catastrophe to the humankind and to the planet as well. And the greatest one is what I call for the digital society. Digital society, this is kind of a very much a blessing. Yes, in terms of perhaps in the sense that actually now the artificial intelligence robot could actually replace the human labor. So we are very much free from any hard labor. But that is not really a blessing. Because of that, perhaps we have to live upon the basic income. Many people are talking about the universal basic income. That means actually really basic income. We have to live on very little amount of income that is given by the government. And the government, the state, will become more powerful. Perhaps we might end up living in Animal Farm of George Orwell, the novel. So perhaps even the state, the government may become very powerful, overseeing all personal movements and even the thoughts of each individual. So it is not quite a good good thing at all. Of course, there are some positive aspects of the digital revolution. So I'd like to suggest that we have to find a new way to create a better world. Okay? So that is what I call the fourth way. Why the fourth way? Actually, it is very much related to the sustainable development. So we have heard of sustainable development a lot. Actually, many people are very much experts on this issue. But I'd like to just emphasize that actually the sustainable development has three major pillars or three major goals. So to achieve the sustainable development, we have to enhance economic condition overall, and also we have to go for some social development. Also, lastly, we have to really improve the environmental sustainability. But the problem is that actually these three goals cannot be achieved with one single policy instrument. This is what I call the trilemma of sustainable development. There's a saying that with one stone we can catch three birds, but in reality that's not possible. That's not possible at all. So therefore, in the very beginning of the industrial revolution period, economics started. So economics started as a new academic, scholastic discipline, and in the very first kind of orthodox economics actually emphasized that actually the government should intervene in the market, because even if individuals are participating in the market for their own interest, because of some individual hand in the market, everyone will become happy after all. But well, in a sense, yes, in terms of the very rapid increase in the production scale, but we have created social polarization. Also, we have created some environmental unstability. So that's not quite kind of a solution. So actually, the United Nations actually split it to split the three goals into 17 goals. Because, as I said, that three goals cannot be achieved with one single instrument or the policy measure. So, as you can see, there are 17 different goals under the name of SDGs. Okay, there are 5 specific goals under the goal of economic And also we have another 5 under social goals, and we have another 5 under the environmental sustainability goal. And then lastly, we have some global partnership, okay, for all of these 15 goals together. But this I think is not quite actually feasible for the sake of the sustainable development, because as I said, there are 3 goals here now, but the 3 goals cannot be actually achieved with just one single measure, and they are very much contradictory or conflict with each other. But we have now even 17 different goals, or at least 16 goals. So each of these 16 goals are very much contradictory with each other. So if you want to look at any single government, for example Korea, some actually department or some actually government officers are focusing only on, for example, some quality education or some gender equity and some other specific goals of SDGs. But then may end up actually worsening other goals. Therefore, I suggest something different. So I still feel that we need to go for sustainable development, but I'd like to add one word, true sustainable development, or sustainable true development, with 3 objectives. The 3 objectives: economic growth, not just economic growth, but the sustainable economy, and sustainable society, and lastly, sustainable environment. In the original concept of sustainable development, actually, environment was supposed to be sustainable, but others were not actually very much sustainable. Economic growth was number 1 goal. The second was just social development. Social development, what do you mean by social development? It's a very vague concept. But I like to just actually emphasize that actually all 3 goals should be very much sustainable. So I'm going to explain to you what they really mean, right? What does true really mean here? Okay, the sustainable economy. Okay, in many countries, even at the present time or in the past, economic growth has been very much interrupted from time to time. If you were to look at the instance for example, Great Recession, which started in 1929, okay? The capitalist market economic system was not quite sustainable at all. Actually, it ended up with very drastic recession, very global scale recession for more than 10 years at the time. Also, you look at the instance of 2008 global financial crisis. Also, with the instance of COVID-19 pandemic, many countries, including the U.S. And European countries, Korea and many, actually printing lots of money, right? But the money actually ended up actually increasing the asset prices and real estate prices only, which are only good for the people who are already very much rich. And then in 2021, when the vaccines and some medicines were available, now people began to move around. Then now goods and services prices began to increase. Then all of a sudden, last year, the central banks started squeezing the money supply, resulting in some recession. So this year, many countries are very much likely to undergo, very severe economic recession. So in that kind of, economic management is not quite sustainable. So I like to suggest that we have to find a way that we just continue to grow. Okay, but here I like to just move to the next screen, where the GDP should be actually modified. So when it comes to GDP, what is GDP? GDP is defined as this. Okay, gross domestic product is the total sum of all goods and services produced by a single economy within a certain period of time. Normally just 1 year. Okay. Now I just produce a bottle of water, which is good for us, right? When we are thirsty, we drink this and we become happier. But when we produce this, we use plastic. We also, the companies, we companies also, produce many, wastes and pollutants. Also, we produce carbon dioxide and such greenhouse gases. And there's another company which actually tries to take care of all those waste and pollutants and also carbon dioxide emitted in the process of producing a bottle of water. That cost are also added onto the GDP, but they should be actually taken out from the sum of goods and services, right? Because that is not good for the human being, right? So that should be regarded as cost. So here actually the Gini progress indicator is a kind of new way of calculation of the total sum of goods and services produced by the humanity, which is only good, not bad, for the well-being of the humanity. So I don't want to just talk too much about the details of this, but this is not my invention. This is a kind of concept that has been around for the past 20 years or so. So also sustainable society. It's not just about just income and wealth distribution. We need to really try to find a way that the majority of people really want to improve the current social system according to a peaceful and democratic process. So equality and freedom, democracy, human rights, and fairness are the five important values of a sustainable society as far as I'm concerned. And the sustainable environment we are all very much aware of. So, what is the first way here? You have heard of the capitalist market economic system, which is what I call the fourth way. Okay? Here, what is the ideology we call? Once again, capitalist market economic system, or recently neoliberalism. The top priority is of course economic growth. In terms of GDP, GDP growth is the top priority. And the central force is of course market. Okay? And the capital is very much regarded as an important production factor. But that resulted in social polarization and also climate change and such. And the second way is nothing but state socialism. So state socialism actually really takes the social equity as the top priority. But actually it ended with a dictatorship, as you already witnessed in the case of the former Soviet Union and former Eastern European countries. So it was also very much inefficient because of the government interference in the market. So there was a kind of a new proposal which was called the third way in the late 1990s. Tony Blair of the UK, for example, was the politician who first started using the third way. Anthony Giddens was actually was a sociology professor at the London School of Economics, and he actually suggested that actually we should find a new way of life, which he called the third way, which is nothing but some kind of the combination of capitalism and the socialism, right? So you may call it some warm capitalism, right? So Anthony Giddens argued that, well, now with the development, economic development, now we have some middle class. Middle class has increased. Now those middle class could become the central force in making the third way of life. But perhaps, yes, I think many of the those European countries are actually following the third way still very much. But actually they didn't pay much attention to the environmental sustainability issue, particularly the global warming in recent years. Therefore, there have been many scholars and economists, particularly ecological economists, who really argue that we should stop growing, right? Which is what they call degrowth. So degrowth, they argue that, well, the environment sustainability is really important. Yes, I understand. Well, so they said, well, there's nothing but just, we should stop growing. But I think, ideologically, yes, I understand. But if we want to stop growing, we'll be really, victims, more likely to victims of degrowth. The rich countries or the poor countries? poor countries should grow still, because there are many poor people. There are many people who are suffering from starvation and hunger. So we have to support them. And also even in the advanced countries, of course, we have to provide the young generation with, adequate job opportunities. So I think, degrowth is, well, I understand, why they want to just argue for the degrowth, but that's not a solution for us to go for. So therefore, I'd like to suggest that actually we want to actually try to hit the 3 goals of sustainable development from different perspectives. As you see now here, so we have an ultimate goal or vision, sustainable development. So we have 3 goals, not just economic growth of GDP, but sustainable economy with a special focus on the genuine progress indicator, and also sustainable society, the second goal, and the third is the sustainable environment. So we have 2 growth strategies. So we have 3 goals, but we cannot hit the 3 goals together. So the main point is that actually we have 2 different growth strategies. One is green growth, another is inclusive growth. Inclusive growth, we have heard of, socially inclusive growth. That is the case. And here, green growth is nothing but the environmentally sustainable growth, right? But let me just briefly just summarize what they really mean. So, inclusive growth is nothing about just an equal distribution of income and wealth. Actually, it's about the equal distribution of education opportunities and, employment opportunities in many countries because of the gender difference, because of some race difference, because of, some poor families as their parents. Some people are not given with any proper education opportunities at all, which is no good for the social justice, which is no good either for economic sake, because human beings are very important resource, as I said. So perhaps it would be better to provide them with proper, very high quality education opportunities. Not only the education opportunities, but also employment opportunities, irrespective of the gender, race, or religion they believe in. So we have to provide them with equal opportunities. So also, winning strategies for another 2 pillars of economic sustainability and environmental sustainability. The basic idea is that actually we try to internalize the price of the environmental cost. So this has been actually I was once a senior environmental affairs officer in UNESCO, based in Bangkok, Thailand. At the time, I was the lead staff actually drafting the green growth concept for the environmental ministerial conference in the Asian Pacific area. The basic idea is that there are various ways to actually synthesize increase the sort of create a winning solution for environment and economic growth. Well, I think I have spent a little too much time that I'm supposed to spend. So thanks very much for your attention. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, profesor, por su exposición tan interesante. Y en este momento, a continuación, les invitamos a escuchar las palabras del señor Alfred Spein. Podemos continuar.
네? 지금 반 정도 있어요. 아니요, 괜찮아요. 다음번에 와서 해주세요. 이번 제가 할게요. 네.
Thank you very much. requested in the invitation that I had for this event, I will focus on the spiritual dimensions of transitioning to an ecological civilization. In this sense, is to realize that the non-material dimensions of life are crucial to the transitioning to an ecological civilization. I have spent a lot of time in my life trying to answer two questions. The first one is, why is it that it takes so long to move swiftly and fast to the transitioning to this ecological civilization? And second question that I still have not answered yet is why the narratives that we put forth to society about this ecological civilization have not gone viral enough, have not gone deep enough to move into the transition to this ecological civilization. No doubt that part of this explanation of not finding answer to the question is the tremendous importance of power and politics, of access, ownership, use, and conservation of our common good. No economic and social or institutional system that I know has resolved this problem yet. To me, the real debate on the transition to an ecological civilization is about human consciousness. It's not all about materiality. For an ecological civilization to surge, we need a consciousness that mirrors image that concept, that vision we have. If that consciousness is not there, that collective consciousness is not there, then it's very difficult that we will really find this ecological civilization. What we have today responds specifically to the collective consciousness that is now. And this consciousness that we have now does not possess the attributes that I feel an ecological civilization possesses. It is important, that we need to understand that it's for the first time in human history that we are living a planetary society. It's the first time that really what happens in one corner of the world is affecting the other corner of the world practically immediately. So we need to enhance this path of human consciousness. And here, this requires at least two things. The first one is that we need to find the right form of livelihood on this planet and embrace at least two important spiritual laws. One is the law of interdependence, and the second one is the law of correspondence. The law of correspondence says that the inner is like the outer, and the outer is like the inner. So what is happening in the world today responds essentially not only to the outer, but also to the inner. And second, that this civilization must care about all forms of life, not only about human life. This is vital for what comes now in the future. This means that the transition to an ecological civilization must go deeper than most people believe. There is not just something that is going to do it. There are many things, but fundamentally human consciousness. This is a civilization that must be not only constructed by ecological enhancing programs, but also, very important, by spiritual, ecological, human, economic, political values and laws. I would like to say that the values today are fundamentally about individual materialism. We need to move to collective values of love, compassion, caring, sharing, justice, and all these values we used to put, most of which are in the Sustainable Development Goals. But these values are not just words. These values are a state of being. And if they are a state of being, they're a state of individual being as well as collective being. These values must be self-realized. Therefore, the transition to a new ecological civilization must provide the spaces, the instances, and the realities for these values to be self-realized. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to move into this ecological civilization. The transition into this ecological civilization must take in itself the value of inclusion. And the value of inclusion is about all human beings, all sentient beings, and nature. The ecological civilization is not about just human beings, but essentially about all forms of life. Another thing that is very important that most people think that transitioning to an ecological civilization is essentially to keep physical balances. You know, some sort of physical accounts about natural resources, and we add and subtract, you know, all this physical world. But this physical world, what it has done essentially is to atomize the ecological civilization. It has moved away from faces, from people, from communities. Today, we need to understand that these physical attributes are important. I'm not saying that they're not important. I'm an environmental economist, so I understand the importance of these balances, like the water cycle, like the temperature cycle, like warming cycles. But this is not really the ultimate in an ecological civilization. The other thing, we talk about harmony and balances. These harmony and balances are not only about nature, they're about us. If we are not in balance, if we are not in equilibrium, it will be very difficult to stop the destruction of nature. I think it's important to understand that this ecological civilization will not only be governed by natural law and human law. This ecological civilization must be also managed, in addition to the other two, by spiritual laws. And I mentioned two of them a second ago. I think it's very important to present this civilization in a way that we can really understand that value systems are the essence of the transition. We need a revolution in values. One of those values is this mutuality of life. Life is a mutuality, it's an act of mutuality among all forms of life. This mutuality must be self-realized. If we don't understand what that mutuality means, it will be very difficult, actually, that we move together in the direction of this harmony with nature. This is not an intellectual thing. This is not an esoteric thing. This is a very practical thing for what comes in the future if we want to really change the map of the world. If we're going to change it, we must be in sync with creation, and we must be in sync with the co-equality of all forms of life. This is fundamental. The co-equality among all forms of life is the essence of the ethics that must penetrate this ecological society. We cannot have a transition void of ethics. And I would say it is the ethics that will move away from us changing nature to nature also changing us. And secondly, this is the ethics where all expressions of life must be considered sacred, in the sense that the ecological civilization will lead to the betterment of all forms of life. This ethics demands certain types of responsibility, certain rights and responsibility. One of them is essentially to avoid as much as possible the different form of theft that is happening in the world with the over-exploitation of natural resources. We know, for example, that many countries in the world are consuming between 6 and 10 countries planet Earth every year. And this is, someone else is losing their green savings. I would like to say that we have to really change the narratives and change the social grammar so that we put the ecological civilization not with the old grammar, with the old language of existing economic systems and political systems. The paradigm, a change in the paradigm, must also push the political limits that we have now. We have seen this in the area of managing our global commons. This is very important, and it's also important that we look at the UN system and the international system in a different way and propose some reforms of the system so that they become planetary. Today, we live in this planetary society. This governance, to form this governance, which ensures quite high quality development, but also a governance that the unit of account of it is to go beyond the self-interest of individual countries. In addition, any form of planetary governance for the ecological civilization requires the construction of an eco-planetary democracy. It is this form of democracy that will ensure the surge of an eco-efficiency, an eco-competitiveness, and eco-accounting. This is the only path through which we will be able to attain a balance between ecological collective consciousness and ecological livelihood. This is why I dare to say today that as we reach the threshold of development, we do not only need more ecology, but we also need more consciousness. It is the nature and quality of such consciousness that will determine whether we will embrace the right vision and take the right actions toward the ecological civilization. We also need this eco-democracy that must empower citizens. Without empowered citizens, it will be very difficult that we go global and local at the same time. This empowerment of citizens is the bridge between the global and the local. An ecological civilization, if we want to give you some preliminary conclusions, an ecological civilization is the only destiny of humanity. The transition is all about a spiritual awakening in the planet. It is the relationship between nature and human consciousness that will determine the future of the human race. This calls for discernment. This calls for a new form of communication and a different form of communion with nature. Today we feel, whenever that happens, more communion among human beings than this communion with nature. The future of this civilization really rests on love and mutuality. One people might think that this is very esoteric, but mutuality and communion, this love and compassion for nature, is the essence of the true justice that we are all looking for. To talk about love and compassion and wisdom and all these values that I have mentioned here are very crucial because they determine the essence of rights and responsibility. Yes, I'm talking about rights. Why I'm talking about rights? Because rights are not only legal instruments. Rights are also a moral imperative. Rights have also their spiritual dimensions. For example, human rights are not assigned to our bodies. Human rights are assigned to our souls. Justice cannot actually express itself without the self-realization of this compassion, love, power, and many of the other values of society. Collective rights make sense only in societies that really exalt their interdependent reality. It's that interdependent reality that will bring to the fore the need for collective rights. Most people talk about human rights as if humans were superior to other forms of life. Consequently, other forms of life are excluded of rights or are excluded of the debates on rights. Today, human rights are extremely anthropomorphic, leaving the rest of creation as a subjugation of human beings. We have to address the rights of animals, nature, and sentient beings that form one holistic reality of human and nature. Not in a relation of superiority and inferiority, but in a relationship of mutual interdependence. We need a more enlightened way to experience reality, to be aware of all forms of interdependence, and assume full responsibility for our actions and the impacts of those actions. Therefore, we do not need to destroy nature to make human good. This is why the concept, the spiritual concept of interbeing, the being among ourselves is very important. Those civilizations that only have human focus have failed. there will never be a human spiritual path without nature. We have a natural body and a natural mind. This awakening will enable an ecological civilization to become transformational and for all humanity and for all beings. Equally important, a planetary view void of spirituality is a suicidal path for humanity. I feel we are already experiencing a great civilizational change, and I am very positive about that. I feel we are longing for an eco-spirituality. Eco-spirituality as an important degree within the path of being. Eco-spirituality will awaken us to several processes of self-realization. For example, that the earth is not a thing, that the earth is a living being, that we have a natural mind and a natural body, and that there is no differentiated intelligence between human beings and nature. Let me share with you some of the principles that I would like to put forth to you about the transition into an ecological civilization from the spiritual point of view. First of all, we need to self-realize the totality of life. There is no separation between one form of life and the other. This is something we need to work on. The reality that we see today around us is saying exactly the opposite. Second principle is that we live in total interdependence, not only interdependence among us human beings, but with nature, with all sentient beings. This sounds like something out of the world, and how do we treat animals? There are so many ways in which we need to explain this principle of total interdependence. Second, we must take care of creation. We have received the planet in a particular way, with a number of species. It is our responsibility to leave this for future generations like it is given to us, or better. Another principle is that we don't own the planet. Nobody owns the planet. It's not about ownership. This planet, we have rights and responsibilities with the planet, but we cannot be in a position where we do whatever we want. There are people that tell me, this is my farm, this is my house, I do whatever I want. This is something that needs to get out, of the path. The other principle is the right of future generation, which most of you are aware of. We have a responsibility, the present generation, about future generations. And this is something we see here today in the great fight for global warming and climate change. The other principle is that there are no rights to destroy. Unless we live in a civilization that is sick in their inner, there is no civilization that has the right to destroy nature. We have to stop that. And finally, about these principles, I would like to say that all sentient beings are on the path of their own transformation too. If you think about transformation to become more enlightened, become more conscious, all sentient beings are in the same path as we are, and we don't have the right to stop and limit that path. There are other spiritual principles, but I'd rather go into my conclusions. First of all, everything goes much further than simply empathetic connection with Mother Earth. It's much more than that. If the 10 Commandments were rewritten today, I'm sure there would be a commandment on protecting and conserving nature. If the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were rewritten today, I am sure the right of nature will be included in that Universal Declaration. This is very fundamental. The relationship with Mother Earth, and I repeat, is a relationship of mutuality. I am because you are. You are because I am. It's not me. It's all together. This is why I dare to propose today the economics of care. Care economics. Because it is fundamental to stop how the market is destroying our planet. And the market is something atomized. Who is the market? Who is in the market? We are not ready to even get into that dialogue. It's not just a matter of correcting externalities. It is much more than that when we talk about conservation, when we talk about maintaining nature as it really is. Today we have a tremendous opportunity, and I thank the organizers. We have a tremendous opportunity to bring to this event a debate not only on the material realities, but also on the spiritual realities of humanity. We have made a mistake to separate ecology from spirituality. We have made a mistake to separate economics from spirituality, to separate politics from spirituality. Politics, economics, and ecology without spirituality is a suicidal path for humanity. And the reverse, spirituality without politics, without understanding politics and economics and ecology, is just an abstract proposition. There is a very important principle that I've been taught in my path of spirituality, that everything that surges has a corresponding level of consciousness. If that level of consciousness is not there, it is impossible that that surge. So if we want the ecological civilization to surge in whatever form or fashion we decide collectively, this consciousness must be there. We must self-realize that all expressions of life are co-equal. We are not superior or inferior. Creation doesn't create unequal intelligence. This is an error of the intellect that has served us to say that nature is inferior, and therefore we can exploit it and look at nature in a utilitarian way. This is essential to move away from the destruction of nature. The ecological civilization is not only and should not only be founded into this nature-centered approach. It is not a polarized, a polarization between a human-centered and a nature-centered. We must go far beyond that. We must find a meta, ecological reality. This meta-ecological reality has one heart inside that is fundamental between these two, the human-centered and the eco-centered, nature-centered approach for this ecological society. And that is the right of nature. The right of nature is central to really get into this meta-system where really there is a dance between human consciousness and nature's consciousness. Let me end by saying that actually the whole path of an ecological civilization, the whole transitioning to an ecological civilization is not about or only about doing and having. It is about being and becoming. Thank you very much.
괜찮아. 괜찮아. 한 번만 더 할게요. 마지막 한 둘이나 한 명 더 있고 계획식 할 때 해주세요.
Muchísimas gracias por sus palabras muy interesantes. Gracias, señor presidente. Y en este momento vamos a proceder a escuchar las palabras de la señora María Mercedes Sánchez.
rector, el doctor Xi, así como todo el equipo presente, al vicerrector de la Universidad Hankook, el doctor José Ignacio, a todos los profesores coreanos que están aquí, que nos han acompañado en estos 3 días. También deseo señalar, y es importante recordar, que hay una diferencia de 12 horas entre ambas ciudades, Santiago y Seúl, lo cual supone un trabajo constante durante 24 horas y especialmente una labor muy ardua en estos últimos días. O sea que un gran saludo y un gran reconocimiento para el Instituto Latinoamericano Hankook de Corea. También quiero extender un saludo a los traductores, al equipo técnico y logístico y a los jóvenes de la Universidad Central de Chile que nos han acompañado también durante este periodo, y al doctor Kim, con el cual hemos colaborado estrechamente para llevar a cabo este evento. Durante los últimos 2 años hemos sido testigos de una pandemia que ha sido una llamada de atención sobre la relación entre el ser humano y la naturaleza. Y como lo vienen proclamando los pueblos indígenas desde hace siglos, se ha hecho más evidente que nunca que la clave para la sustentabilidad y para asegurar un planeta sano reside en restaurar la relación rota de la humanidad con la madre tierra, con la naturaleza en su conjunto. En este sentido, la adopción de los derechos de la naturaleza ha proporcionado una visión plural e integrada de la vida en armonía con la naturaleza, y el conjunto de leyes centradas en la tierra está transformando las tradiciones jurídicas dominantes establecidas en el antropoceno y fundamentalmente informadas por el pensamiento occidental que separaba a los seres humanos del mundo natural. En la última década, aproximadamente 40 países han reconocido los derechos de la naturaleza a través de más de 200 leyes y casos. Y los derechos de la naturaleza se reconocen ahora en diversos sistemas jurídicos, incluidos los basados en la tradición del derecho civil, el derecho mixto y el derecho consuetudinario. Hasta ahora, el reconocimiento más significativo de los derechos de la naturaleza se ha logrado a través de la vía legislativa, seguida de la vía judicial, la vía ejecutiva, las asambleas institucionales y los consejos tribales e indígenas. Además, las cosmovisiones y cosmogonías de los pueblos indígenas han sido reconocidas en el derecho constitucional e internacional. En el reconocimiento de la naturaleza como sujeto de derechos, cabe destacar la actividad relativa a los ecosistemas acuáticos, con el reconocimiento como personas jurídicas de cuerpos de agua como ríos y sus afluentes, mares, lagos, lagunas, manantiales, humedales y arrecifes de coral. Por ejemplo, el reconocimiento del río Atrato en Colombia en 2016, el río Wanganui en Nueva Zelanda en 2017, el río Magpie en Canadá en 2021 y el Mar Menor en España en 2022 han sido reconocidos como entidades sujetas de derechos con los que los seres humanos tienen una relación complementaria en lugar de como objeto a explotar. Más allá de los derechos a emprender acciones legales, cada cuerpo de agua tiene derecho a la protección de su existencia en su estado actual y a la restauración cuando se viola su equilibrio. Todos responden a alguna dificultad actual, incluida la degradación real o potencial de la naturaleza. Además, la protección jurídica existente resultaba inadecuada para hacer frente a la situación, lo que llevó a la adopción de un nuevo paradigma ecocéntrico. Cada caso está además arraigado en su propio contexto sociocultural y cada uno surgió en sistemas jurídicos diferentes, que van desde sistemas de derecho romano-germánico, como es el caso de Colombia y España, pasando por el derecho consuetudinario, el caso de Nueva Zelanda, hasta un sistema de derecho mixto, como es el caso de Quebec. Estos cuerpos de agua obtuvieron derechos a través de diferentes medios: una decisión judicial para el río Atrato, legislación nacional para el río Wanganui, resoluciones locales para el Magpie y una demanda ciudadana de legislación en el caso del Mar Menor. Además, en cada caso se obtuvo un nivel de protección diferente. Estos esfuerzos por proteger los cursos de agua, reconociendo sus derechos, han expoliado otros esfuerzos. Por ejemplo, en Canadá se presentaron el pasado mes de mayo 2 proyectos de ley para conceder derechos al río San Lorenzo, uno en el Parlamento Federal y otro en la Legislatura Provincial de Quebec. Ambos proyectos de ley prevén la creación del Comité de Protección del río San Lorenzo, que actuaría como guardián del río. Cada vez más se reconoce la interdependencia entre los derechos humanos y los derechos de la naturaleza. Por ejemplo, la resolución sobre el caso del río Atrato denuncia las violaciones del derecho del demandante a vivir en un medio ambiente limpio y ecológicamente equilibrado, así como el derecho al agua. Asimismo, las resoluciones sobre el río Macpay apelan a los derechos de los ciudadanos de Quebec a la protección del medio ambiente reconocidos en la Ley Provincial de Calidad del Medio Ambiente. Y la conexión entre el medio ambiente y la salud humana se puso igualmente de relieve en la legislación propuesta en el Mar Menor, que evocaba sentencias anteriores del Tribunal Supremo de España sobre el tema. El año pasado ha sido un año en este sentido muy interesante y ha marcado un hito en toda esta evolución de los derechos de la naturaleza. Y ahora me voy a permitir hacer un recorrido muy rápido en 3 o 4 eventos que han sido muy significativos en el avance de esta independencia, de esta comunión entre los seres humanos y la naturaleza. Empiezo con Estocolmo más 50, celebrado el pasado mes de julio. Se reafirmó la conexión inseparable entre los derechos humanos y los derechos de la naturaleza en el marco del diálogo de liderazgo sobre el tema titulado Reflexión sobre la necesidad urgente de adoptar medidas para lograr un planeta sano y prosperidad para todos. La primera recomendación del diálogo de liderazgo reconocía los llamamientos urgentes a los gobiernos para que protejan y promuevan tanto los derechos humanos como los derechos de la naturaleza. El pasado mes de octubre, en el 41 Congreso de la Federación Internacional de Derechos Humanos, celebrado en París para conmemorar el centenario de la organización, un resultado clave del Congreso fue la adopción de la resolución sobre los derechos de la naturaleza y su interdependencia con los derechos humanos. La Federación Internacional de Derechos Humanos fue creada tras la Primera Guerra Mundial en 1922 por las asociaciones de derechos humanos de España, Francia y otras 13 asociaciones nacionales. La Federación participó estrechamente en la redacción de la Declaración Universal de los Derechos Humanos, adoptada por la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas en 1948. Hay que elogiar el papel de liderazgo que tanto las instituciones académicas como las organizaciones de la sociedad civil han desempeñado y siguen desempeñando en la promoción de los derechos de la naturaleza. En el caso de la sociedad civil, a menudo inicia el proceso de elaboración de propuestas legislativas que luego son asumidas por un funcionario o partido político y adoptadas por un órgano legislativo en la forma que éste considere oportuno. En este sentido, el papel desempeñado, por ejemplo, en Canadá por el Observatorio Internacional de los Derechos de la Naturaleza ha sido decisivo para colaborar estrechamente con las comunidades locales y las naciones indígenas en la redacción de la legislación que reconoce los derechos del río Macpay en Canadá. El observatorio ha participado activamente en el proceso de presentación de proyectos de ley paralelos relativos a la Declaración de Derechos del río San Lorenzo en Quebec. Esta colaboración es representativa de los muchos ejemplos que ustedes han tenido la oportunidad de oír en el transcurso de esta conferencia y en el cual muchos de ustedes también lideran. Otra tendencia ha sido el creciente número de promulgaciones sobre los derechos de la naturaleza basadas, por ejemplo, en el corpus de la legislación internacional, incluida la Declaración Universal de los Derechos Humanos, la Convención Marco de Naciones Unidas sobre el Cambio Climático, la Declaración de Naciones Unidas sobre los Derechos de los Pueblos Indígenas, el Acuerdo de París y el Convenio sobre la Diversidad Biológica. Por ejemplo, con motivo de la 9ª sesión de la Plataforma Intergubernamental Científico-Normativa sobre Diversidad Biológica y Servicios de los Ecosistemas, comúnmente conocida como IPBES, la evaluación metodológica relativa a la diversa conceptualización de los múltiples valores de la naturaleza, aprobada el pasado mes de julio en Bonn por representantes de los 139 Estados miembros de la IPBES, destaca que compartir una visión de prosperidad para las personas y el planeta, reflejada en la Agenda 2030 para el Desarrollo Sostenible y la visión 2050 para la diversidad biológica, depende de un cambio transformador en todo el sistema, que incorpore los diversos valores de la naturaleza y esté alineado con los objetivos de justicia y sostenibilidad que se apoyan mutuamente y sus dimensiones económicas, sociales y medioambientales entrelazadas. En la Conferencia de las Partes, o COP15, en el Convenio sobre la Diversidad Biológica, celebrado recientemente en Montreal, Canadá, el Marco Mundial Kunming-Montreal de la Diversidad Biológica reconoció de manera contundente los derechos de la naturaleza en la implementación de este marco, y ahora cito textualmente: la naturaleza representa los diferentes conceptos de las distintas personas, incluidos la biodiversidad, los ecosistemas, la madre tierra y los sistemas de vida. Las contribuciones de la naturaleza a las personas también representan diferentes conceptos, tales como los bienes y servicios de los ecosistemas y los dones de la naturaleza. Tanto esta última como sus contribuciones a las personas son primordiales para la existencia del ser humano y la calidad de vida, entre otras cosas, para el bienestar humano, para vivir en armonía con la naturaleza y para vivir bien y en armonía con la madre tierra. El marco reconoce y tiene en cuenta esos diversos sistemas de valores y conceptos, en particular los de aquellos países que los reconocen, los derechos de la naturaleza y los derechos de la madre tierra, como parte de su implementación satisfactoria. De igual manera, la meta 19 de este marco refuerza el papel de las acciones colectivas, y por acciones colectivas se entienden las acciones fundamentales en relación con la madre tierra, planteamiento ecocéntrico y basado en los derechos que permita actuaciones encaminadas a las relaciones armónicas y complementarias entre los pueblos y la naturaleza, y que promueve la continuidad de todos los seres vivos y sus comunidades y vela por la no mercantilización de las funciones ambientales de la madre tierra. Dichas acciones incluyen el papel que desempeñan los pueblos indígenas y las comunidades locales, las actuaciones centradas en la madre tierra y los planteamientos basados en criterios de no mercado o no mercantiles, incluida la gestión comunitaria de los recursos naturales y la cooperación y solidaridad de la sociedad civil en aras de la conservación de la diversidad biológica. De ahí que esta conferencia, que entrelaza los derechos de la naturaleza y la economía ecológica, no podría haber resultado más oportuna, ya que reafirma los lazos indiscutibles entre el derecho ecológico y la economía ecológica, y nos permite visualizar y diseñar un futuro sostenible en el cual la economía ecológica pone de relieve las prácticas e instituciones no mercantiles. Específicamente, nos hace repensar la relación humana con la naturaleza y propone un nuevo paradigma económico, en donde la protección de la naturaleza como sujeto de derecho es esencial para entender el comportamiento económico ecológico. En ese sentido, ambas disciplinas no comparten la perspectiva antropocéntrica que ha caracterizado a los sistemas jurídicos desde la Edad Moderna, reconociendo derechos exclusivamente a los seres humanos como dueños absolutos de su entorno. La COP27, celebrada en Sharm el Sheikh el pasado mes de noviembre, ofreció un gran avance en el artículo 6.8 del Acuerdo de París, titulado Enfoques de no mercado, al crear un calendario de implementación para el 2023-2024, en el cual se pide a los expertos que comiencen a identificar dichos enfoques y quienes pueden participar. Una vez implementado, el artículo 6.8 podría ser una forma de regular las muchas inversiones internacionales en la preservación de los ecosistemas anunciadas anualmente. De esta manera se abre un verdadero camino para trabajar seriamente en cómo se debe abordar la crisis climática como una alternativa al mercantilismo. Los valores propuestos por el derecho y la economía ecológicos, como son la equidad, la justicia, la cooperación, el diálogo, el respeto y la inspiración mutua, se complementan en el viaje hacia un paradigma no antropocéntrico o centrado en la Madre Tierra. Los enfoques centrados en la Madre Tierra llaman a la humanidad a escuchar, inspirarse y cuidar del planeta que nos sostiene y reconocer que la naturaleza es y debería ser una fuente de leyes, ética y cómo nos gobernamos a nosotros mismos. El 14 de diciembre pasado, en el marco de los trabajos de la Asamblea General de Naciones Unidas, la Asamblea General adoptó la resolución número 14 de Armonía con la Naturaleza, la cual en su párrafo operativo número 3 solicita al presidente de la Asamblea General convocar a un diálogo interactivo el 24 de abril próximo para discutir la posibilidad de convocar y ver el alcance de una reunión de alto nivel titulada Asamblea de la Tierra, que tendría lugar el 22 de abril de 2024, para que el paradigma no antropocéntrico o centrado en la Tierra, en evolución, refuerce el multilateralismo a través de la discusión de enfoques holísticos alternativos en base a diferentes visiones que contribuyan a la implementación de la Agenda 2030 de Desarrollo Sostenible y más allá. 10 años han transcurrido desde la Conferencia de Naciones Unidas de Desarrollo Sostenible, conocida como Río+20, celebrada en 2012, cuando por primera vez un documento oficial de Naciones Unidas titulado El futuro que queremos reconoce los derechos de la naturaleza como una vía para alcanzar el desarrollo sostenible. Y desde ese entonces, este lenguaje ha quedado reflejado en las resoluciones de la Asamblea General de Armonía con la Naturaleza que se han venido adoptando anualmente. Es por esta razón que el año pasado, como les mencionaba anteriormente, ha sido muy significativo y ha constituido un hito más en el camino que recorremos. El lenguaje de respeto hacia la Madre Tierra que se ha venido forjando y adoptado en el 2022 es el vivo reflejo de lo que interiormente imaginamos, pensamos y sobre todo sentimos. Las palabras que utilizamos tienen la capacidad de transformar nuestra realidad. Los neurólogos han reconocido que el lenguaje genera cambios en nuestro cerebro y modifica nuestra percepción del entorno que nos rodea. Es por ello por lo que se abre ante nosotros una nueva etapa que nos permita juntar y entrelazar este lenguaje en una futura y muy dinámica Asamblea de la Tierra para seguir avanzando en la implementación de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible. Para finalizar, quiero mencionar unas palabras de Octavio Paz y abro citación: estamos hechos de palabras. Ellas son nuestra única realidad, o al menos el único testimonio de nuestra realidad. No hay pensamiento sin lenguaje. No podemos escapar del lenguaje. Enseñar palabras es enseñar comprensión del mundo y de nosotros mismos, pero también poder para cambiarlo. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Muchas gracias. Y a continuación, estamos un poco cortos de tiempo y celebraremos el acto de cierre de esta conferencia. Bueno, antes de iniciar el acto de clausura, vamos a realizar el intercambio de... Bueno, entonces, en este momento vamos a invitar a la señora Catalina Maluk Abusleme, directora de la Escuela de Economía y Negocios de la Universidad Central de Chile, y nos va a dirigir sus palabras. Muchas gracias.
Muy buenos días, casi tarde a todos ustedes para esta importante conferencia. Por ello quiero agradecer muy especialmente, por un lado felicitar y agradecer a la Universidad Hankook de Estudios Extranjeros, quien organizó este evento, en conjunto con el programa Armonía con la Naturaleza de la ONU. Agradezco muy especialmente al vicedirector del Instituto de Estudios Latinoamericanos, el doctor Bujo Cho, y a todos quienes hicieron posible este evento. La verdad que leí los nombres porque la verdad que es un poquito complejo, no me acuerdo ahora mí pronunciarlo, pero sí llevamos 3 días de un congreso internacional que ha unido a gente con mucha distancia. Ya lo decía nuestra expositora, estamos a 12 horas cronológicas de distancia. Eso ya es un gran desafío, poder comunicarnos con quienes nos escuchan y que ya prácticamente son las 12 de la noche. Pero eso no ha sido un obstáculo. Lo importante es que hemos tenido el espacio para poder discutir y analizar de distinta manera temas tan relevantes como los que nos afectan a nuestro entorno, el ecosistema, la naturaleza, lo que nos rodea. A veces estamos en el día a día en la vorágine de querer hacer nuestras labores en las que estamos enfocados. Tareas tan pequeñas que podemos nosotros aportar de manera individual, como por ejemplo el reciclaje, muchas veces se nos olvida y no sabemos el daño que estamos generando al lugar donde nosotros vivimos. No solo nosotros, sino donde van a habitar nuestras familias, nuestros hijos, nuestra descendencia. Y eso, esa conciencia que nos cuesta tomar a veces nos pone en un escenario súper complejo. Ustedes han participado, han discutido en conferencias, en mesas de discusión, con distintos expositores de distintas partes, ¿cierto? Y yo creo que han tenido un privilegio que pocos tienen, porque han dado espacio a temas tan relevantes que implican la continuidad de nuestra forma de vida en el planeta. Hemos visto cómo han subido los océanos, cómo se están comiendo las playas de nuestro país. Acá en Chile, hace 2 días atrás salían noticias cómo se han achicado nuestras playas. Y eso es efecto del cambio climático. Fue impactante cuando en plena pandemia y cuando llevábamos mucho tiempo de cuarentena, mirábamos el cielo y estaba limpio. ¿Por qué? Porque no habían autos circulando, porque los vuelos habían disminuido significativamente. Y por lo tanto, también uno es capaz de darse cuenta ahí de lo importante que somos nosotros en el medio y cómo hemos impactado a la naturaleza. Yo creo que lo más importante hoy día es que lo que se ha discutido y analizado acá, cómo poder avanzar en cosas concretas, en involucrar más a las personas que estamos afuera, porque efectivamente la mayoría de las personas está muy ajena a lo que está ocurriendo. Y yo creo que tenemos que pensar en esta mesa con todas las personas que están conectadas simultáneamente de qué manera involucrar más a las personas y que entendamos cómo nuestro aporte puede también, no solamente los estudios, las grandes organizaciones, sino que las personas, uno a uno, cómo somos capaces nosotros de impactar en el ambiente que estamos viviendo. Lo escuchamos siempre en los medios, vemos lagunas donde todos los peces han muerto, océanos contaminados, la marea roja, que es impactante en países como México, en el Caribe, donde hay los sargazos. Lo vemos en los medios, pero nos mantenemos ajenos y no tomamos conciencia de ello. Por lo tanto, este espacio, este congreso realmente es sumamente meritorio. Yo agradezco en nombre de la Universidad Central, especialmente la Facultad de Economía, Gobierno y Comunicación a la cual pertenezco, por haber tenido la oportunidad de que cada uno de ustedes discuta y analice todos estos elementos tan fundamentales del ecosistema y para la convivencia y la vida de las personas, de la naturaleza en los próximos años. Muchas gracias a cada uno por darse el tiempo, tanto acá, las empresas, digamos, las organizaciones que fueron las más responsables, pero también los expositores y cada uno de ustedes que ha querido estar acá presente, no restarse de un tema tan relevante y ojalá podamos seguir como comunidad avanzando cada día más en esto. La universidad es un espacio espacio que reúne a las personas y tengan acá su casa de estudios para poder seguir avanzando en estos temas y poder nosotros de alguna manera aportar, aunque sea con un pequeño granito de arena, a este tema tan relevante para la humanidad. Muchas gracias a cada uno de ustedes y que tengan un excelente regreso a casa, quienes han venido de afuera, y que tengan una excelente jornada. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias y muchísimas gracias, señora directora. Y entonces ahora realizaremos el intercambio de video mensaje mandado. Bueno, muchas gracias y como último acto de todas las jornadas de nuestra conferencia, para ello el director de nuestro instituto ha mandado un video mensaje. Ahora vamos a apreciarlo.
El director de nuestro instituto ha mirado ha observado todos los programas trasnochando y concluyó así la palabra.
Está bien.
Ha llegado el momento de aprovechar esta conferencia académica de agradezco infinitamente a todas las comunidades humanas y a todas las instituciones que han contribuido a la realización de este evento. En particular, a Armonía con la Naturaleza de las Naciones Unidas, liderado por doña María Mercedes Sánchez, a la Universidad Central de Chile, encabezada por su rector, el doctor Santiago González Larraín, a la Embajada de Corea en Chile, liderada por don Han Byung-tae, embajador de Corea en Chile. Sin duda, su encomiable colaboración ha sido fundamental para la organización de este evento. Mi más sincero agradecimiento a todas las distinguidas personalidades que tuvieron la gentileza de acompañarnos. Muchas gracias a los moderadores, al equipo técnico y al personal de apoyo por su incansable labor. Muchas gracias por el favor de su atención a todas quienes siguieron desde muchos rincones del mundo las sesiones. Pero muy especialmente quisiera agradecer a todos y cada uno de 128 académicos y expertos que han tenido la bondad de exponer y compartir con nosotros sus reflexiones, producto de tantas horas de estudio. El mérito del éxito de este evento es total y absolutamente de ustedes, porque ustedes han sido los verdaderos protagonistas. En lo personal, soy honesto al afirmar que esta conferencia ha excedido mis expectativas y me siento muy contento por el trabajo realizado y espero que ustedes también lo estén y que esto sea motivo para que lo celebremos con nuestros seres queridos al regresar a su casa con la satisfacción del deber cumplido. No olviden compartir esta dicha con su familia, que seguramente estará muy orgullosa de ustedes porque han hecho algo muy encomiable y pocos tienen el coraje de hacer, cambiar el mundo. Quizás hoy no dimensionemos la magnitud de lo alcanzado, pero les aseguro que sus conceptos cruzarán fronteras y traspasarán los tiempos e indudablemente servirán de piedra angular para la creación de una sociedad ecológicamente civilizada. Quizás hoy no dimensionemos la magnitud de lo alcanzado, pero les aseguro que lo que hemos sembrado pronto germinará para impulsar la jurisprudencia de la tierra y los derechos de la naturaleza. Quizás hoy no dimensionemos la magnitud de lo alcanzado, pero les aseguro que servirá de mucho a fin de construir un mundo mejor para las próximas generaciones. Innegablemente, el conocimiento solo se vuelve virtud cuando se transmite altruistamente con el propósito de procurar la evolución del pensamiento humano en aras de hacer de este planeta un lugar mejor para todos. Es por ello, compañeros, que elogio su valiosa participación, puesto que su arduo trabajo de investigación y su generosidad al haberlo compartido aportarán a la noble causa que todos nosotros enarbolamos. Sin duda, desde hoy formamos una gran familia académica, porque nos unen lazos vocacionales muy fuertes, porque nos identificamos en un mismo ideal, porque tenemos fe en que nuestro granito de arena puede aportar para bien y porque sabemos que entre todos será más fácil hacerlo. Porque más allá de nuestras diferencias culturales, raciales, políticas y religiosas, convergemos en el espíritu de lucha a fin de procurar el bienestar de nuestro planeta y de la humanidad, porque mantenemos la esperanza del mundo mejor y porque asumimos con valentía nuestra responsabilidad como actores del cambio, sin importar los riesgos que ello conlleve. En lo que respecta a esto último, me gustaría manifestar mi admiración y total apoyo a todos aquellos quienes con valor han afrontado la amenaza de élites codiciosas tras haberse opuesto a sus intereses mezquinos. A manera de resumen de este evento, tenía pensado mencionar aquí lo más destacado entre lo acontecido y lo expuesto. Sin embargo, son innumerables los aspectos a resaltar que, por las limitantes del tiempo, me sería imposible hacerlo. Es por ello que les invito a consultar las actas de la conferencia, que serán publicadas debidamente en nuestro sitio web, así como a ver las grabaciones de las ponencias que se subirán al canal de YouTube Pachamama Televisión de nuestro instituto. Si bien es cierto, hoy concluimos este encuentro, no ponemos punto final a nuestra labor. Hoy ponemos un punto y seguido, porque prometemos seguir trabajando durante todo este 2023 con miras a poder realizar una futura conferencia. Mientras tanto, compañeros, les pediría encarecidamente, siguieran esforzándose con el mismo ahínco en sus proyectos, siguieran manteniendo los lazos que aquí hemos creado y siguieran creciendo humana y profesionalmente a fin de poder seguir compartiendo lo mejor de ustedes mismos en la próxima edición. No quisiera robar más su preciada atención, pero no puedo despedirme sin darles más gracias a Chile y a toda su hermosa gente que nos ha acogido tan cálidamente desde el primer día. Asimismo, sepan todos ustedes que en Corea del Sur estaremos siempre dispuestos a recibirlos con los brazos abiertos. Bien, damas y caballeros, con la venia de todos y cada uno de ustedes, declaro oficialmente clausurada la tercera conferencia internacional del Grupo de Humanidades Korea Plus del Instituto de Estudios Latinoamericanos de la Universidad Hanguk de Estudios Extranjeros 2023, en colaboración con el programa Armonía con la Naturaleza de Naciones Unidas y patrocinada por la Fundación Nacional de Investigación del Ministerio de Educación de la República de Corea. Muchas gracias y hasta la próxima.
Muchísimas gracias, señor director, por sus palabras de despedida tan conmovedora. Y así damos por finalizada esta conferencia. Y muy personalmente les expreso mi profundo deseo de que hayan tenido una gran oportunidad de compartir nuestros conocimientos y fortalecer nuestros lazos de amistad y de hermandad en esta edición de conferencia. Y muy especialmente diríjase mi especial agradecimiento a todos los participantes y a todos los oyentes y por presentar sus fuertes y constructivos debates. Y también quisiera manifestar mi mayor gratitud al equipo de apoyo formado por Javiera Valdebenito, Javiera Macías y Francisca Romero, que ellas eran el mejor equipo que he visto en mi vida, que siempre estaban dispuestas y con facturados juntos para desarrollar este evento de manera muy fluida. Muchísimas gracias y tal y como ha dicho el director del instituto, espero seguir viéndolos en algún lado del mundo o a lo mejor podría ser en Corea, donde ustedes serán muy bienvenidos. Y también, antes de terminar, sí, vamos a realizar el intercambio de obsequios entre la Universidad Central de Chile y el Instituto de Estudios Latinoamericanos. Y últimamente les solicito permanente interés en nuestro instituto y estaremos en contacto. Hasta muy pronto. Gracias.